What's up, guys? This is Chris from VLG, and today we are talking about the biggest marketing fails of all time. Just hit the mic.
Hey guys, it's Savannah from VLG. Today we are talking about some of the biggest marketing fails and also some successes that we liked. See you soon.
All right, Savannah. So I've got a ad campaign that I irrationally don't like, and I want to tell you about it. So I cannot stand and have never been able to stand the Flow campaign from Progressive.
Really?
Never.
No reasoning behind it? She just annoys you?
No, she annoys me. I think they baked in other characters to kind of prop her up a little bit. Then there was the one where she's 5 different characters in the same ad, and she's really showing some range. I don't get it.
That's how I feel about, I think they've changed it now, but the 2 guys that sit in their car at Sonic.
Oh, yeah.
They have always annoyed me. It doesn't hit. The only thing it tells me is that they have a new Sonic Blast I should go try. But you know, it's not the point of the ad.
True. So it does its job. It's
Yeah.
just the thing with them is I'm always like, who's going to end the conversation? Because they're just one-upping each other back and forth, and then how do they finally decide, like, okay, I'm tired of trying to be funny here.
So if those are the ones you don't like, or one that you don't like,
Yeah.
you have any that you do?
What brought to mind the Progressive one was the fact that I love their current campaign, which I'm sure most people have seen because I think it was originally a Super Bowl ad.
Is this the Done It Up Like Your Parents?
Yeah, he basically has a support group for people who are becoming their parents, which it's genius and everybody can relate to it.
Everyone is doing that.
Literally everybody does it, but the way it's done is just it's so good. I love that one, so ups to Progressive for finally figuring it out after however many years of Flow.
Well, she's done the same thing that the Geico Gecko has done.
True.
And I like the Gecko.
I do have a secret about that, though.
Okay.
He's fictional.
That's true.
He's not real.
How can you hate somebody? Well, Flo is technically fictional.
Is she, though? She
she's a
seems
person?
very real every time she's on my screen.
That's just your irritation.
Yeah, that's true.
There's the Geico Gecko.
Yeah.
They also do the Caveman.
The Caveman. Yeah, that's right.
Farmers Insurance has the jingle, which I want to talk about jingles later on. Liberty has a jingle too.
So insurance kind of knows what they're doing.
Yeah, I would say insurance is doing it right, but I think there are plenty of companies out there that are also doing it wrong. I think that's what we're going to talk about today is some of these marketing fails and marketing successes.
Yeah, and the number one campaign that seems to top just about every list, when you Google this at all, you search worst ads ever, it is Pepsi, Kendall Jenner, number one on just about every list, which is funny because Pepsi has a few options from over the years.
Well, they have some good ads, but I think
They do.
this definitely comes to mind when I think of a bad one.
It's rough.
So it's Kendall Jenner in a protest, and she's giving a Pepsi to these police officers, which I think, how did this come about?
So the director of the ad mentioned afterwards, after everything blew up, that it was referencing a photo from 1967 from a Vietnam protest where a young lady was presenting a flower, a really moving photo. So you understand where he was coming from, but this is where timing is crucial and being able to read the room at large.
Current events are going on.
The social zeitgeist and how things might be taken. So, and at the time, there was another photo that people were equating with basically is what happened. So,
and it just didn't land.
It not only didn't land, it is now the most panned ad ever. So
that
it's a rough one.
That reminds me of Adidas had a really I would say this wasn't. I mean, it was a fail, but it was more of a really unfortunate fail. So they sent out an email after the Boston Marathon when there was the bombing that occurred at the Boston Marathon, and the subject line was, "Congratulations, you survived the Boston Marathon."
It's another one where it's all timing, right? It's like they had this in their HubSpot, in their MailChimp,
ready to go,
scheduled, ready to go. They knew when the Boston Marathon was a year before, right? The email marketing manager was like, "I'm so ahead. It's great." He's probably on vacation. He's probably running. He probably ran in the marathon,
and unfortunately didn't catch the email that went out.
It's all timing.
So really poor timing.
Unfortunate, all for sure.
Well, there's one ad. I personally think this one's funny.
I think this one's funny, too. And this may have been a Super Bowl ad. I can't quite remember. But it was the Kraft Send Nudes.
Nudes,
N-O-O-D-S.
as in noodles.
Right, as in noodles. As in noodles. With SNL star Vanessa Bayer was in the ad. And it was Send Nudes, O-O-D, not nudes. And obviously people got up in arms about it, saying they were sexualizing macaroni and cheese, which is a funny accusation. There's a few layers going on here, but I actually thought the ad was funny, but it's so on the line that it's like, it for a brand like Kraft to pull something like that off, it's a tough tightrope to walk, I think. Kraft's
been around a long time. They're a family brand. Everyone in this room, I think, grew up eating a Kraft product of some sort.
Yeah.
So I think it landed with a certain audience, but not their entirety of their audience.
Right. It's like we were talking about earlier. I think it's one of those that pushes the envelope, but it just pushes it slightly in the wrong direction to where you're going to get blowback for that. It's just going to happen.
Which brings us into, I think, some marketing campaigns that were actually done well.
Yeah, and there's one that stood out to you recently especially, and they've done a great job in the last few years of kind of capturing the Gen Z audience, I guess it would be, right?
Yes, it's Wendy's. And they are very well known for their really hilarious Twitter roast is the correct term. And the reason that it landed so well is because, A, it's funny, but it's not like they were producing this on a Super Bowl commercial spot. They knew the medium that they were using, which was Twitter. Yep. They knew the audience that was on Twitter. So it landed very well.
I agree, and they knew the platform, like you mentioned, but they struck a tone that was unique. They were one of the first brands, if I remember correctly, that started talking like a person, which doesn't always land.
Right.
But they did it in a way that was funny enough that it broke through the noise a little bit on Twitter, and they used the medium in the way it was meant to be used and leaned hard into it. And so they've done a good job kind of cultivating that brand personality on that particular channel, you know?
And then, of course, we have the classics that I think everyone loves. You've got the Budweiser Clydesdale horses.
Another one, all the beer companies have all the money to spend on all the ads.
Love the Bud Light. Dilly Dilly. That one is so funny.
They're almost cultural touchstones every single time. It almost always hits. They know what they're doing.
You could reference the "What's up?" That was probably terrible. But what I'm saying is, I could reference that to you right now, and you know exactly what I'm talking about. I think that one also makes me think of the Mac versus PC campaign.
Yeah, which is one of my favorites of all time. And I didn't realize until we were looking before the show, they did 66 of these, 66 Mac versus PC ads with the same two guys, and they were always funny. But what they did was they took a perception and filled a void, basically. So there was a perception at the time, especially coming off of Windows basically taking over the entire computer space, software space, whatever you want to call it. And they filled a void of being kind of the cool guy in the room. And that was the whole, premise of the campaign. But then you have this fun time that Steve Ballmer and all the Windows guys are having on stage at the Windows 95 launch, and you see why it worked. They sort of didn't help themselves on this front. I don't know. I just see a bunch of really cool guys just up on stage having a dance, but they left themselves open for that one, as you might say.
And I think what Apple did is they took the space and they took all this really informative information about Apple, and they made it really entertaining.
They did.
And I would argue, kind of like with Wendy's, is they really kind of shaped the Apple culture that I think we live in today.
Yeah, and they took what Windows was doing, which was serving businesses really well, and said, hey, not everybody at home needs a computer, they need a laptop, they need something, and it's not to do spreadsheets on. It's to keep, edit photos and do more creative things, and they filled a void that was in the market and had been in the market for a while. And it proved to be a need based on the success of that campaign.
Yeah, I think Apple was super niche before that.
Yeah, and then there was one that stuck out to you with extra gum.
Yeah.
This is more,
it's just like
the heartstrings.
It is. It's one of my favorite campaigns.
Gets you in your feels.
Came out when I was a senior in college, so I remember.
See, I didn't remember this one. This is funny.
So it is. It came out in 2016. It's extra. It's extra gum. It's a story of Sarah and Juan, and so what it is this guy takes the gum wrapper, they'll share a piece of extra gum, and he'll take the gum wrapper and he'll sketch out the special moment between them, and then he saves them throughout the years, and then at the very end of the commercial, he has them all in an art gallery and he uses them to propose to her.
That is sweet.
And I was like, I'm gonna go buy extra gum after this because I thought it was so cute.
You're like, somebody will do this for me. I'm going to have this. I'm going to have my own art gallery. Oh, that's a lot of pressure. That's a lot of pressure for guys, okay?
Sorry.
So to wrap things up, we've got one that sort of calls back to an OG big campaign that kind of came back into the social consciousness because of Mad Men, but the Share a Coke campaign, which is it still going on?
I haven't seen it in a few years, but I would say
a few years, really?
it's been a blur since 2020.
Okay.
But
maybe they made a lot of those Cokes with names on them.
This was like a cultural phenomenon.
It was. Oh yeah.
People were digging in grocery store bins, trying to figure out. Actually, somebody found my parents' last name on a Coke bottle and gifted it to them, and like they still have it in their office, and it's like a 7-year-old Coke.
That's cool.
Wouldn't drink it, but they have it out, and that makes you. That kind of shows the impact of this campaign. And this was everywhere for a really long time.
And they had every name. They did an amazing job of covering the spectrum of names. It was impressive.
They started in Australia, and it was so successful, it launched worldwide. Yeah. And it wasn't just like common names. Like you said, they had everybody's name.
They did. And it reminds me of, did you ever have Jones Soda?
Yes.
You ever seen this?
Yes.
So Jones Soda used to have a thing. They may still do it, where you could just send in your photo that you wanted, and they'll put it on the bottle. They would put photos,
is so cool.
Which is super cool. But I remember that predating that by quite a while. So I wonder how much that may or may not have inspired the Coke thing, but always a cool thing to be able to personalize something unique like that.
Well, you have a super common name, Chris. And so like, you know, when you're growing up and you're trying to find your name on a keychain?
Yep.
I was a kid that more recently, Savannah would appear on more keychains, but there was a while I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
But that's what Coke did, is they did the opposite of that. And they're like, oh, you have a really obscure name. We're going to definitely make sure that your name is on a Coke bottle. So with all these marketing fails and successes, I think there's some key takeaways that you can do that will keep you from failing and more so being a success. I think the first one, and we kind of touched on this with the first 3, is check your tone.
Absolutely. And just have a sense of collective self-awareness at every step of the way, right? Just make sure that it passes all the checks of timing, tone, just all those different current events, all the different things that change, you know, again, push the envelope, but push it in a way that is reading the room correctly, I guess.
Which is how you can be successful. You want to be weird. You want to get a little wild, but
be out there.
Yeah, you can still do that the right way, standing out and still, you know, having really successful marketing campaigns.
And I think a lot of these, the common thread between all of them, or many of them, is they're trying to thread a needle that is just too thin. It's just too skinny. You can't do it.
I think with all of these campaigns, it really boils down to just checking your tone, really.
Yeah, self-awareness, checking your tone at every step of the way throughout the process, right? And just making sure that you have an awareness of what's going on in the culture at the time, and trying to push the envelope, but push it in a way that is not pushing against the current cultural progression.
You can be weird, you can be wild, and you can still do that in a way and stand out. You just, I think, have to keep all of those things in mind.
Absolutely. So that's it for today, Savannah. What else do we have? Anything?
I think the most important thing today is to remember to like this video and subscribe to our YouTube channel.
All right. We'll see you next time.